So, hi everyone. Again, welcome to Coffee with DC. This is a really special event for us, as mentioned. It's our first ever alumni panel. We're really excited to have our alumni here. Thank you again for taking the time. Just as a quick introduction to myself, I'm the host today. My name is Lynn. I'm a travel specialist with Discover Corps. If we haven't met, some of the alumni here on this call have probably never met me. But I am a travel specialist, and I've been traveling on these kinds of similar vacations with purpose, like we like to call them, since I was 13 years old, from India to Kenya to Ghana. But more recently, I've traveled with Discover Corps to Cuba, to Peru, and also Baja, Mexico. So I'm kind of a DC alumni in my own way, with recently going on a couple of trips. So I'm really excited to hop in and hear from your experiences today, and just want to thank the panel for being here. I also want to give an opportunity to introduce my co-host, Jenny. If you mind just saying hi to everyone and letting them know what you do at Discover Corps.
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Jenny. I'm a travel operations coordinator, and I help all of our travelers once they sign up for their trip through all their questions and get them ready for their departure on their trips. And Rob, I remember I came in with your family, I think, right around that time. So I remember speaking to you a little bit. So yeah, I've also been on a few of our Discover Corps trips. I did go on this Thailand elephant experience, which I know some of our alumni on the call today went on that trip as well. So really excited to hear about your experiences and excited to hear more from our alumni. So thank you all for being here.
Awesome. Yeah, and today's theme is really about this idea of a transformative power of travel. We know that travel can be inspiring and that has potential to impact individuals, not only the communities that we're visiting, but for us ourselves. And so, yeah, I'd love to just kick it off with an icebreaker activity with our alumni. Maybe we can start with Rob, and just if you can give us a really cool highlight of your trip with us, something quick. But let people know where you traveled and when.
So we did the trip to Thailand. They have two different trips to Thailand, so I don't know which one we did, but we spent the majority of our time in Chiang Mai. Our trip specifically wasn't a mixed group. It was we have 6 kids, so it was our entire family. It was a group of 8, and we were a solo group. So I don't know how that varies from the other experiences. But you know, obviously the highlight of the trip is the elephants. But I think the other thing that was kind of important, well, certainly memory making, was that we added the extension to go to, so we spent the majority of the time in the jungle, and that extension to the south, and to kind of see the other side of the country and extend that for a few days. And we actually even extended our trip for a few days beyond Discover Corps too. But there was a lot to see, and I think the highlight is there's no way to see the amount of stuff that we did without the organization of Discover. So
Thank you. That's awesome. Well, thank you for that. Sharon, can I pull on you?
Sure. I think my first trip was to Costa Rica
Mm-hmm.
with the turtles. And then I went to maybe a year later, I went to Thailand to do the baby elephants.
Mm-hmm.
And that was so much fun because we got to interact with the elephants. Um, yeah, we had a blast. Uh, and I don't think it's something you can do with you. I think we stayed at the elephant camp like maybe 3, 4, or 5 days. I can't remember. Um, one of the what I liked about the group, because I was traveling alone and I wanted to go on a trip with people who are like-minded, because on some tours, if you're traveling alone, you're kind of the outcast. But because we're all eating together, you get to know people really, really well. And we started off having some pretty in-depth conversations, and yeah, we just had a really good time, and we got to interact with the animals. So So
That's beautiful. Thank you for that, Sharon. And Tammy, can you tell
Hello.
us about where you went? There's some commonalities here. Some Thailand.
I went to Thailand, I think it was 2019, and I went
Mhm.
solo. I think it happened to be Women's Week, so there was three other people in the group and the guide, and it was just such a magical experience. The entire thing was like surreal.
Hmm.
Um, One of the highlights, besides the elephants, which is really special, was meeting people from all over the world and how friendly
Mhm.
everybody was. And it was just beautiful, beautiful. It was one of the best trips of my life.
That's
It was amazing.
so wonderful to hear. Yeah,
And
but
I
this,
liked is that how ethical where we were was,
right.
absolutely no use or rides or bull hooks or anything like that. Very respectful of the elephants.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, our partnerships are really important to us, just like across all of our trips and making sure that they're aligned with our mission and vision, which is to connect you to communities that are or projects that are doing really great and important work around the world and for us to highlight them and showcase them. So thanks for mentioning that. Um, well, I guess I'm gonna do kind of like a round robin kind of conversation with you and just kind of pull on different questions and we'll see where it takes us. But I'm really curious why each of you decided to take this trip. Like what motivated you to sign up for a Discover Core trip? And maybe we can start with you this time, Timmy.
Well, it was just I had done my bucket list, and this was just a big compliment to it. And what really attracted me to it was your mission. That was very important to me, that it was ethical and
Right,
respectful.
right. And you, Sharon?
okay, so my first trip was to Costa Rica, and I wanted to start traveling on my own because I go with friends every so often. But then I'm going to where they want to go to do what they want to do. My travel plans are just, I love seeing the animals. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted to do something besides just being a tourist. So with the turtles, whether we actually did much because we wandered the beach and we were looking for in the middle of the night, we were looking for poachers and we saw some and they got away, but or we know that they got to one of the turtle nests, but um it was just a good experience because and Tara was a great hostess. We got to go to places that were off the beaten track. So we went to a like a fish sanctuary
Mm-hmm.
and they cooked dinner for us or lunch for us right there. And we got to interact with the locals. Whereas on most tours, you're not going to be able to do that. You're not going to get to know some of the people and people who are living there. And that was the same when I went to Thailand. And, some of the people, even in Thailand, we were talking about having a reunion, and we've never gotten around to doing that because the bonds you form, you're with them 7 days constantly and you just create bonds and so even though I went alone, you're sharing memories with a lot of other people who've become friends.
Absolutely. No, it's so true. And I think it's important to kind of talk about our trips. We have these kind of standard dates online that we advertise for people, right? That they can join. Sometimes it's a women's week. Sometimes we do have these special kind of advertised dates. But we also have this potential of giving you a private experience as well for your family, which is what Rob did, if I'm not mistaken. And so I just kind of for our audience members, for you to know that you kind of have these avenues that you can do, usually a private group. Um, if you have a group beyond six as well, it's pretty easy to add a new date for you because we do small group travel. So just wanted to highlight that as well. But yeah, absolutely. I think our trips are about uniting people and some families that just by chance meet people on the same trip and then they end up traveling with us many times on different trips, which is cool. Or they meet up just in the US because they've, made these bonds together. And we hear that a lot, and that again, that motivates us to keep doing the job that we do, because we know that it can have this potential to build really long-lasting good memories together. So I'll hand it to you, Rob. What motivated you and your family to kind of reach out to us and book this trip?
Uh, so I travel, and I travel with friends. I travel alone, and I would consider like the way I do things. I'm more of a traveler as opposed to a tourist, kind of like what Sharon was talking about. And I mean, like backpack, no plan, point A to point B. I have flights to places, and I kind of figure out everything in between. And that's the way I personally travel. Our house, we got a blended household. We're the Brady Bunch, 3 boys, 3 girls. Um, 2 in college at the time. It was 2 in high school, two in. So we have 2 in college now, 2 in high school, and 2 in middle school. And with the twins going on to college, I wanted everyone to experience being a traveler versus a tourist. And I'd actually known about Discover Corps for quite some time. Like I'd been looking at their trips for years and really hadn't made a decision. And I pointed out to Gretchen, my girlfriend, and she was like, "We could never do something like this." And I'm like, I think this is doable. And the other part of it that was really important for us was like, I'm not a fan of just giving kids something like that. And there was an aspect of charity, there was an aspect of helping out. And we did 5 days at the sanctuary. It was hot. There was no AC. We were getting up early in the morning. We were shoveling shit. We were cutting grass, and in spite of all those things there's no way I could get them to do any of these things back here at home, right? They still had a good time, and they certainly had a memorable experience with the elephants. And I felt like there needed to be an element of that in the type of trip we took, because I believe with you guys we did like 13 days, but we added another 7 on that, and we did a day in Istanbul on our way out. So like I'm not capable of just giving that to the kids, and I was looking for something that had a service element to it. I don't think it was hard service. I don't think it was like working in a quarry mine or anything like that. But I think it delivers an element of appreciation to it. So you guys have been on my radar for a long time, and we were looking at kind of the experiences that were there, and it was actually kind of hard to choose, but we kept gravitating back towards elephants. And I think when we looked at itineraries, Thailand fit better than Kruger Park in South Africa. And so, and to be clear, I think Discover Corps delivered on my expectation of showing the kids the difference between a traveler and tourism. Because even though I'm a traveler, like for the kids, it's not convenient to do that. You take them on a vacation where there's activities and there's stuff and they're entertained. So that was kind of the main reason we kind of gravitated towards Discover Corps. And there was a few other organizations that do stuff like that, but either they don't market as well as you guys, or we just didn't find them as interesting.
Yeah. No, it's interesting to hear. And I hear a lot for families wanting to give their kids an experience that's different, that isn't, just going to the beach and hanging out, like that. It has this element of purpose. And with our Thailand experiences, for everyone to kind of know, we have 3 different kinds of trips. We have our grassroots expeditions, we have our signature journeys, and then we have our festival trips. Our grassroots expeditions generally have this level of service and give back, like built into the itinerary. Our signature journeys usually are maybe have an hour or 2 of volunteer service, or they don't have it at all. But Thailand is unique because we have the trip in the north, which is what you did, Robert. right? It's technically more grassroots, no air conditioning during your time at the sanctuary. Our South experience is at a different sanctuary because it's in the South, but similarly vetted like we do. But the South trip is a little bit higher of a lodging scale of lodging. So it's for a little bit more comfortable. It's considered a signature journey. But Thailand's unique because they have the same level of volunteer hours, both experiences. Just the trip in the north is a little bit longer. It's 10 days, 9 nights, our main trip, and then our south trip is 9 days, 8 nights. And then again, we have these extensions, especially for Thailand, that you can add on and complement maybe what you missed out on. But definitely, and I loved what you said earlier, Rob, was that our trips, like we soak up a lot of time in the day. We try to really plan it out so that you're not missing out on these experiences. And sometimes that's what people are looking for, right? And that you as a family, you don't need to worry about what you're going to eat, that allergies are accounted for, that, you know, the rooming is set up in the way that you asked us to have your rooming, you know, configurations and things like that. Those are the things that we try to handle for you to just allow you to make memories together, which is which kind of like leads to my next question of, you know, how did it impact you as rather a solo or a family travel? Like what were some takeaways as a family or individually? And maybe I can go to you, Rob.
It was, I mean, yeah, I got 6 kids that would tell you all something different, but what was, I mean, it really was, it was the, you know, it wasn't like, how are you entertaining me today? It was mostly looking around in awe and asking questions, which is something they never do here, you know, and the, the way, the way it was structured, in my opinion, kind of elicited curiosity from them. They were very engaged with our tour guide. Same thing. They developed a relationship with her. She was like an aunt. Sometimes they needed to be yelled at because I was too tired to do it. She got it done. Remind me, what was the original question again?
Sorry, the original question is like, what kind of impact did it have? And you were saying like everyone will have a different answer, but for you, I guess, what was it, or what did you see? I love that you mentioned that they're asking more questions. That's great.
I mean, there's like being with the elephants and doing that stuff is once in a lifetime. We've talked about going back. We've talked about purchasing elephants to put them in these sanctuaries. You know, doing those things as a family and kind of having a continuing relationship with a place like that. There's stories that come up all the time. They get told over and over. So I know the kids appreciate it. I had, you know, we got some knuckleheads too. We have one kid who we got back from that trip. We'd only been back for like maybe 5 days. One of his friends texted him like, "What are you up to this summer?" He's like, "Nothing. It's been boring." And I happened to see the text. I was like, "Dude, like, are you showing off for your friends? Because you literally could have just text pictures of where we had been the last 3 weeks. It'd be awesome." And I was like, I'm gonna tell you this, like, of all the idiot things kids could do, like this simple little text is one of the most hurtful things I've ever seen, because I felt like, you know, we had a very wonderful experience. And then from there, he kind of opened up and was very gracious about the trip and explaining it instead of trying to be, you know, the tough guy show off with his friends, like, "Oh, we're not doing anything." And I think there was some personal growth in there for people for our kids in terms of like, you know, becoming better storytellers, because now they have, you know, their own stories that are also interesting. And the trick, it's something they all want to do again. Like it's something that they're excited to do. The trick now is we got kids in college, so we got to race and do this before anyone starts having kids, and it gets way too complicated. But I think the impact which is the impact I was looking for, was that they're interested in seeing the world as travelers, and they clearly know the difference between a tourist and a traveler.
Yeah. And it's planting these seeds because like you said, they grow up, and the kind of tourism that we do, it's becoming more mainstream slowly, which is great because it means that it's a movement towards like a more regenerative kind of travel that people are, because they're realizing, you know, there's a difference between a traveler and a tourist, and what are those differences. And so, yeah, planting the seeds in the younger generation to travel differently and to show up differently when they arrive to places, I think
Hey,
is awesome.
Lynn,
Mhm.
I saw a question. It wasn't exactly directed at me, but it pointed out, how do people afford this?
Mhm.
Rob took 8 people there. I do want to answer that question because it's like, we're not rich people at all. Um, we planned for 2 years. We actually worked with Discover Corps for 2 years to save
Mhm.
up for this trip. Um, and I have no problem if someone wanted to know like the breakdown of what the totality of the trip was for us outside of Discover Corps with our travel and all that. I got no problem
Mhm.
sharing
Yeah,
that with anyone.
we do offer some like discounts for people when private is a little bit more difficult. Usually we don't offer discounting on our private departures just for everyone. Like what you see online is generally what you get. When it comes to pre-planning, like Rob was saying, is we do offer an interest-free payment plan, and Jenny answered that in the Q&A, which essentially means you break up your payment into monthly installments, and then at the end of 2 months prior to your trip's departure date is when we need that final payment. So again, if you're planning a year and a half out in advance, you have that year and a half to make those monthly payments. And we also have a very, you know, flexible refund policy as well that you can read about online. And so even if you're making those payments, but you know, 5 months prior to your departure, you decide to cancel, technically anything that you've paid for, we can refund you. So we could talk about those things offline, but just so everyone knows, definitely pre-planning in advance is the best thing that you could do for yourself to make it a little bit more affordable. Yeah. Um, Tammy, how did it impact you as a solo traveler? You know, what was your kind of takeaway from growth or somewhere around that there?
Very scary to travel out of the country by myself,
Yeah.
but I like very structured, that it was a small group. And like Sharon said, you definitely bond with the people you're with. And we have maintained friendships since then. I found it very freeing in that it allows me to travel the world and feel safe, you know. Um, and like she said too, with your friend, you get attitudes and you get what they want to do. And this, I like that it was designed, but you also had free time. And we happened to hit it where there was like we went to the islands and there was a community party. It was just wonderful. The whole islands got together. It was wonderful. But it's definitely very freeing.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I get a lot of people on the phone, solo travelers like you, saying like, "Can I do this?" Because I think our marketing too, we are very much family forward for people. If you're, you know, again, new to us, we very much try to represent ourselves as family forward, you know, trips that are family friendly, but also for sure certain dates attract a lot of female solo travelers or solo travelers in general. And we as travel specialists, we can tell you who's in those dates and match you up with people, you know, rather similar families of similar age kids, or from the same, you know, state even. Sometimes those matchups just happen naturally. But then similarly with the solo travelers, we can match you up. But yeah, Sharon, can I pull on you?
So one of my takeaways is that how fragile the animals are and how much endangered they are, because even though the elephants, we talked about this in one of our dinner discussions about how the elephants, they're in the sanctuary instead of being out in the wild, but yet if they were out in the wild, they wouldn't survive. They would have been hunted or killed or died or um and then I guess there was one person at our group and I or he had bought the elephants to bring to that sanctuary, so he was doing this nice thing for the elephants and he was supporting the elephants. And yeah, so I guess it's just the fragility of the animals.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think our trips really try to like mention like represent a community accurately. So talking about conservation, or even in our trip to Alaska, we do talk about climate change and how things are affecting, the wildlife there, and kind of what are we seeing, and talk to scientists. A lot of our trips include moments with, really educated individuals in these topics, which is very inspiring. I know when I went to Baja, swimming with the whale sharks, I mean, the person on the boat with us was somebody who studied whale sharks for 20 years. His research is, really, really unique. And when my husband got to join me on the trip, and he said, like, that's a Discover core element to me. Like, I can't believe we get to meet this guy and be on a boat with him, and then he's telling us how we get to go swim with the whale sharks. Like, what a better person to be with us, guiding us through this experience. And like you said, the fragility of our ecosystems and everything, but being able to interact with them is something that we really pride ourselves on. And we want to connect you not with each other, but also to nature, in many of our trips, very much wildlife based. Yeah, Sharon, tell me.
Can I throw something in?
Yeah.
Well, because even when the turtle eggs were being poached,
Mhm.
for us from a first world country are thinking, how could they do that? Because these
Mhm.
animals are endangered. But if you need to feed your family,
Mhm. Priorities.
if you in
Mhm.
that situation, would you do the same thing? So it becomes not, uh, you know, you we can't judge. I mean,
Yeah,
we
of
still think it's a shame, but
course.
it's you
No, it's
realize,
cultural education too, right? And
right?
understanding why people are making those decisions, and realizing, like, well, maybe we need to go help this part and make sure that people are economically empowered in order for them to make better decisions for wildlife, because right now they're just making decisions for their own families and communities, and maybe don't have the resources to make the best decisions. So definitely, um I appreciate that. And again, I think that that's a theme in many of our trips, is kind of like having those cultural discussions. So a lot of our experiences, people ask, like, oh, well, what's a signature journey if there's not really any volunteering? Like, it's like we really consider these culturally immersive trips that help educate you better as a traveler and help you understand, you know, again, great organizations or places that are also doing really great work in their community. And by us going and visiting them, and just, being able to share time with them, we give a financial contribution to them so that they can continue to exist, and we can continue to visit them year after year, right? So a lot of people also ask about our trip prices, and which I think, is often a discussion element. And I mean, we try to really pay our communities well, and our guides, and all of these elements that go into making this kind of experience really rich, for you. Um,
Can I
Tell
speak
me,
to that
Rob.
for a second?
Sure. Hmm.
So I travel a lot, and I'm the guy that everybody calls when they're looking for cheap flights and how to get them and how to do that. And I can list places I've flown to, and for prices that would blow your mind. So like, I was very, very, very price conscious of everything, and the whole ticket price per person and what exactly we're getting for that. And I'm assuming it's the same for everyone. Like, look, we were a private group, but uh, I actually, there's a handful of things you guys provided that I can't even put a price on. Like, to have our own guide, and that wasn't just like for language barriers. Again, I can't speak to solo travelers like put together in groups, but uh, because we were one group who could all make a decision together and say we don't want to do this or we do want to do that, and having that person who knows the area, who can make changes on a dime. I'll give you a perfect example. There was one day in Chiang Mai, we were looking at a beautiful pagoda, and there was a festival going on, but it was also 110 degrees, and we are all very northern Ohio, fair skinned, not prepared, no amount of sunscreen, getting destroyed. And at these places, the guys had to wear pants, and so it just kind of compounded the issues. We were scheduled to go to a museum. I didn't even have to say anything. Mai knew that if she took us all into air conditioning, everybody was going to crash. And also, no one had an attention span left to read placards and do something like that. And she on a dime switched the day and got us doing something. I can't remember what it was, but everyone was very thankful that we weren't going to a museum. We had our own vehicle, which all of us fit into. It was comfy, to and from places, no waiting, no parking, nothing like that. And also because it was private, if we needed to make a change, it wasn't like we had to get to point B and then figure out an Uber or whatever. We were able to get around. And I don't even know how to itemize those costs, compared to doing this on your own or doing something. But what I can say for sure is, prior to going on the trip, I was very skeptical about what I was getting for my money, but it's absolutely like a fair priced product, services, and for a person who scrutinizes those types of things thoroughly, I think we got beyond our money's worth.
I appreciate that. And I love hearing the shout out of Mai. I mean, she's a famous, amazing Northern guide. We can't give her enough love. She is a problem solver on her feet. And I do think that that's when people ask me a lot on the phone, like, what sets you apart from other companies? I do genuinely believe a lot of our guides are exceptional humans that really have amazing backgrounds that are able to host you. And that's really at the end of the day who's going to be like sharing this experience with you, and they're such a critical piece to the puzzle of a good experience abroad. So definitely love that you shouted my out and our guides. Absolutely. I guess Tammy, I'm gonna call on you, but I'm curious, what do you think, and we're kind of talking about this already actually, but what is the biggest value added in having Discover Court facilitate this experience for you? Like what was the biggest thing that you were like, thank goodness that Discover Court handled this because I appreciate it and I want this in my experience.
I just thought it was very structured, and I love the accommodations. Our accommodations were like 4 and 5 star hotels. They were absolutely gorgeous. Our guide was fabulous, and like Rob said, we had our own travel, our own car back and forth to wherever. Um, just that it was all inclusive, and I didn't have to worry about any additional things unless I wanted to participate in something. And I thought the value for what you got was excellent.
Awesome. Yeah, to speak on that for everyone just asking about flexibility, that's often a question I get. How flexible are the itineraries? So when I get that question, I tell people, again, we have private experiences that arguably can be a little bit more flexible because it's just you and your family, and you can let the guide know, hey, I'm tired. I don't want to go to the museum right now. Like, can we do something different? And then where we can adjust. For the most part, though, we have tried to balance the itinerary to make it as curated as possible and as realistic as possible for what can be done in a day and what's enjoyable. But of course, we kind of move to the pace of the group. Whatever you see online, though, sometimes those are public trips, so you're joining them with other personalities, other people. And in that case, of course, there's certain pieces that, we're hopping from one place to another and the bus is leaving, so you have to be there. There's not so much flexibility there, but we do allow some free time in a lot of our itineraries as well to just let you break off and maybe have a lunch or a dinner on your own, things like that. But that's all very much on our itineraries, and we communicate those nuances to you so that you know what to expect. But what about you, Sharon? What was your biggest, kind of value added from the Discover Court trip?
What I appreciated was that everything was included. So all the meals, and we got to hop around to different restaurants in the city, and everything was taken care of. We were met at the airport, taken to the hotel. So as soon as you stepped off the plane, we didn't have to wait for everybody else in the group to get to the airport. They met us at the airport, took us to our hotel, dropped us off back at the hotel. Yeah, just all inclusive. We didn't have to worry about anything. And the guides were great. They lived there, they were local, and all very, very nice and cordial. And you get to know them.
They become part of the family for sure. Yeah, I recently traveled with a family that I booked on a trip to Cuba, and then they originally wanted to go to Baja, but the dates didn't work. So they moved their Baja trip and I got to join them. And the guide, they said on their trip to Cuba, I mean, they still text them. Like it's part of their family. Like they have adopted the guide. But no, thank you all for sharing. I guess that my final question before we open it up, because I really want to know what kind of questions people have, and I think there's already some in the chat. But the final one I'll just pose to the panelists here is, what would you tell a traveler who's seeking to take a Discover Core trip? Like, what piece of advice would you give to the people on the call right now, likely, who are just kind of thinking about it, not really sure? What advice would you give them? And maybe I'll ask you, Rob, to start us off.
I mean, I endorse it. Obviously, I was willing to sit on the panel. I've done it. I've stayed, same thing. Stay in touch with we shoot a text back and forth every now and again. I think my biggest thing is pay attention to the itinerary and just make sure it's everything you're comfortable with. Like, you guys did a pretty good job of making sure that we were prepared for the living conditions of the sanctuary. They were suitable, but it was hot, and again, it wasn't the whole trip. It was a portion of the trip. And if you have questions, reach out to Discover Corps. I mean, there's a whole team of people. I can't remember who I was working with originally. She had a
I
baby,
think Angela. Yeah,
Angela.
you worked with Angela. A lot of you did.
For 2 years. For 2 years, we went back and forth. And the reason, if people are wondering, like, the reason ours was so hard is Thailand actually shut down. We were actually the first group to go in. In fact, like 2 weeks before, it was uncertain if we were even going to be able to go on that trip. We personally were talking about sacking that trip and taking all the kids to Croatia instead. And like, we're really close to pulling the trigger. And I had like Google News services set up on everything Thailand. It like texting, calling Angela every other day, like, where we at with this.
Yeah.
And it ended up working out quite beautifully. But I think some people have these questions are like, it's silly, or I'm not going to ask, or reach out. They're happy to answer. They almost always have an answer too. And if they don't, they'll
We'll
find it
find
for
it.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll figure it out. We'll talk to our team on the ground. But yeah,
I
absolutely.
can't,
And I love the oh, go ahead, Rob. Sorry.
I can't, I wish I could. I can't speak to the solo side of it. I can only speak to the group. But the one other thing, and this is my fear, like, I don't like being stuck in a group. I'm a pretty independent animal. I don't like doing tours all the time. And we, it wasn't like we were cooped up and we had to do this Disney type thing. Like, to be completely honest, like, every single night we were in Chiang Mai, kids went to bed, I went out like all night. I did other things. I found bars, I found music, just stuff like that. There was, came back, no one had an issue with it. It wasn't a problem. So I could still do, I didn't feel like I was stuck to exactly what Discover Corps had. And Discover Corps also didn't have a problem with me wanting to go off and do some other stuff on unscheduled time. So
Absolutely.
if that is, someone on the panel is concerned, like, no, you'll certainly get your own opportunities to explore in your own way and do your things.
Yeah, go to the shops you want to go to. Yeah, check out the spots. Absolutely. And I always just tell our travelers, like, we can do the best to prepare the guide for your arrival. And we have forms that we have you to fill out that answer kind of questions that help the guide know who they're going to be receiving and what your interests are, to try to give you moments. But also, like, if you're a solo traveler in a group, it's also good to just like use your voice and talk to your guide, because they're there to help facilitate the best experience for you. And we just encourage you to talk to them, and they'll do what they can for you. Absolutely. I mean, they're there to make sure that you enjoy your time in their beautiful country that they're hosting you in. So just, I would encourage you as an alumni too of a trip, just speak up for, like, hey, I'd love to stop at that ice cream shop. Like, can we grab one? Yeah, sure. If we can, we will. Those are the stop the bus moments that we love to facilitate as well.
And to your
But
point,
Mhm.
our guide, Sunny Kwan. I don't know if you know her, but she was fabulous. But anyway, she did just that. We passed the pistachio factory. So not this pistachio, the cashew. And that was just spur of the moment. And
Right.
there was a big community party that we knew nothing about, but she incorporated it. So she did do those extra things and whatever you wanted to do.
Right. That aren't on the itinerary, but are magical moments. Like sometimes we really, um, they come later. You're like, oh, you remember a part of the trip that's not written in the itinerary, but it's a highlight, and that we often find that just happens naturally, and those are the unique kind of one of a kind experiences that I do think you experience on our trips as well because of that facilitation, especially from the guides. What about you, Sharon? What piece of advice would you might give somebody trying to join a trip?
Be open-minded and be a little bit adventurous. Oh, and
Love
one
it.
of the things I forgot too, what I liked is the small groups. But like, so when we went to Thailand, when we were heading to the elephant sanctuary, I guess it had rained really hard, so the roads were closed or really iffy. And
Hmm.
so they had to load us up in four-wheel drive. And they were trying to make us comfortable. And so the guides were in the back of a Jeep or a truck or something. And I asked, can I sit back there? Because I didn't want to be in the cabin all
Hmm.
cramped up because they didn't have a lot of four-wheel drive vehicles. So they all looked at me and are you sure it's going to be bumpy? I go, yeah. And they didn't have seats back there. So I'm sitting on a tire and I'm sitting in the back with John with Discover Corps and one of the other workers and with some of our provisions and stuff. And we're just bouncing around. And it was fun. I had a blast and I told them they should include this. They should always use a four-wheel drive on the way to the sanctuary because it's part of the experience. Like you're instead of in a nice van
Yeah,
going
just
to the jungle,
slowly
you're bouncing.
arriving. No,
Uh-huh.
got it. I don't think a Discover Corps trip exists without at least one bumpy road. No, I'm just kidding. I don't don't quote me on that, but definitely a bumpy road or two is uh part of our adventures. Love it.
So yeah,
No,
just be
everyone.
open and take whatever comes your way and enjoy it.
I think that that's important. And sometimes, I mean, that a good guide knows how to prepare people for the day, And I think that our guides do a really good job of just, like, hey, maybe we got to be a little flexible today. The roads might be crazy, the weather might be different, but just to embrace the experience. And we'll do our best to iron out the details to just make sure that you guys all have a great experience and um we appreciate you alumni coming on and letting people hear from you yourself who've actually paid and been on this experience with us and I think it adds a lot of value so I really appreciate you being here and I just want to open it up on the floor to any questions in the chat and I'm going to review some of the questions that have come up and just answer them for anyone else who hasn't maybe pulled that up yet. And then I'll just do some closing remarks, and that will be it for today. Time flies by when we're having fun. But I know there was a question just about danger as a solo traveler and just how many people are in a group. So in regards to like again our coordination, we very much right away ask you once you're confirmed on the trip and your spot is guaranteed to run your flights, making sure that you purchase, the right flights and or when you arrive at the airport, we will receive you. Um, and in regards to just a danger question in general, I think Rob really with your story and the experience of Thailand and what was going on, we keep an eye on a lot of world news ourselves every day, trying to make sure that we're informed, that we're checking what's going on in the world, what's changing in entry requirements, what do you need in order to arrive to that country, and making sure that we're informing you as best as possible. And then we are part of an organization known as Terra Education, right? Which has sister organizations that also do travel mainly with youth. So bringing youth abroad alone without their parents. So we're all very much sharing those resources together and making sure we're informing each other where we're traveling, what's happening. And we're not afraid to make critical decisions when we need to. If we need to adjust and take you out of a trip because it's no longer safe, we will do those things. So you can have full confidence in, I think, our ability to be able to make those calls, and know that we have training on these kinds of issues. Similarly, when it comes to insurance on the ground, if you have something that you need to be, you need to go to a hospital or you need to be seen by a doctor, we have medical insurance included in our trips. So we do ask you to communicate kind of what your needs are and make sure that the trip is appropriate for your, physical abilities and things like that. But absolutely, I don't think you need to be worried about danger in regards to traveling as a solo traveler. We very much do everything as a group. And I mean, Sharon and Tammy here are testaments to that experience. Somebody else just asked about trips are good for families. They have kids 7 and 9. Absolutely. There's really only 2 trips that aren't appropriate for kids. And those is our Havana Jazz Festival trip and our Uganda trip. Those are usually more for an 18 years old or older. All of our other trips are family friendly. We have certain itineraries that are even more catered towards kids of your age that we could send you, like our family island exploration trip in Cuba or our Costa Rica experience. But those are like targeted even more towards families, but arguably our trips are for 6 years and up. Okay. And kid pricing is up until 16 years of age at the time of travel. So anyone is considered for kid pricing there. Somebody asked, what time did Rob go on his trip to Thailand? June. Interestingly enough,
like right as school let out.
Right as school went out. Okay, yeah, nice. Yeah, a lot of people ask, Thailand's a pretty popular destination. People usually want to travel over the summer, which is technically rainy season, but we tell people like it doesn't necessarily disrupt your whole experience. There might be rain, you might have to come prepared for it with some boots and a rain jacket, but it's usually not disruptive of the experience. So we run trips all summer long because it's popular for families or people to have time off. And it hasn't, ruined people's experience just because it is a rainier time of the year at the moment.
We actually, I mean, it's anecdotal, but we experienced next to no rain. So
okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Any other questions here? I think there's one coming in. Can you go to Morocco another time without paying extra for a private group? Kids are in school in May. Yeah, so it depends on the size of somebody, just it's anonymous. It depends on the size of your group when talking about paying extra. So every trip we have has a different guaranteed to run number, which essentially means we have a minimum amount of people that need to be signed up for the trip in order for it to go. Certain trips have different guaranteed to run numbers. So please just get in touch with us and tell us a little bit more about your group size and style and dates, and we'll do our best to let you know if there is any sort of additional costing. But usually for a private group, again, as mentioned, over 6, there's no extra costing, but it depends, and we'll work with you individually to go over those details. Somebody said, have any of you done a Peru trip? Can you speak to the activity level? Yeah, so both Jenny and I got to go to Peru last year in September, late September. And so I think our Peru trips, we have 2, right? We have a grassroots experience that is more of that give back side. It includes like an element of volunteer service. You're volunteering with an after school program. It's a little bit more of like a flexible kind of volunteer scenario style. It does include a trip to Machu Picchu, which I think is the number one concern with Peru, I think for anyone, is just remembering altitude sickness, right? And making sure that that's something that you prepare for. I experienced it myself within the first 24 hours. There's things that you can do to try to prevent it or medications to take if you're experiencing it, including local kind of remedies as well that people will definitely give you. But in regards to the level of activity, I think really anyone, like even we've had 70-year-old people do this trip, we've had youth do this trip. It's just a matter of taking it at your pace and remembering that the altitude is a little bit challenging sometimes, but it's not any sort of like intense hiking that we're doing really by any means on this experience. Okay. Yeah, somebody said they're interested in the grassroots one. So yeah, the grassroots one, definitely appropriate for like kids. I feel like this trip also attracts families who are wanting Spanish immersion experiences. They want to be able to practice their Spanish and work with people in a small community. That's definitely the vibe of the trip. So the activity level, I believe on our itinerary it's moderate. I can double check, but I don't think it's any sort of like high activity. Like our gorilla experience in Uganda, that's a little bit more of a challenging one. Okay. Any other questions, even from our panelists here? Do you have any questions? You can hop in if you want.
I don't have any questions. I do have like there was 8 of us on the trip, and every single person had a cell phone, and we put all the pictures in one place. I can share my screen and scroll some of that if you guys would like to see. I mean, especially if there's anyone on here that has kids, kind of understanding what kids do. And when we went on this trip, our age range was 11 to 18. So I feel like we covered it all. I'm happy to share that if someone like.
Yeah.
There was one thing in there in that Morocco comment. It said about paying extra. We did a private group, and I can't speak to everyone, but we didn't pay extra for a private group. We just happened to have enough people to be able to do
Correct.
that. There wasn't a penalty per se.
There's just certain countries that have weird restrictions in the hotels and the vehicles and everything. So sometimes we can't make a private group for families. Again, 6 is kind of that sweet number. Sometimes I can do a private group to Cuba with as little as 2 people. Okay. So there's unique cases in countries that have smaller amounts. So I just work with you individually. It's very rare that you would have an additional fee. But if you're, just a couple looking to go to South Africa, unfortunately, we don't have an ability to do a private trip to South Africa with just as little as 2 people. So we have different guaranteed to run numbers for those private experiences, and I can walk you through any of those nuances on a phone or in an email. So don't hesitate, anyone, to reach out to me on those ones. At the moment, our Morocco trip is very specific for dates because it's a festival trip and we go for the Fez Sacred Music Festival. Those dates have just been released. It's like the end of May. If I'm not mistaken, it's 22nd to the 31st. So if you're looking for a Morocco experience outside that, I just ask you to email me and we'll walk through it together and see what options are available. But at the moment, we have a very like curated trip for the festival. Okay. Somebody's just asking about sort of like any sort of accessibility issues in regards to traveling to Bhutan, what kind of accommodations could be met. So similarly, we have to take this on a case-by-case basis. Not all of our countries are accessible or accessibility friendly, which is unfortunate, but I think that comes with a little bit of higher development of like buildings and things like that being able to accommodate for anybody who's maybe using a walker or things like that. So there are certain countries that are a little bit more accessible and we can walk through them. Bhutan, I'm not entirely sure, so that's something that I would want to check back with my directors and get back to you. So thanks for your question, but we might need to take this one offline and tackle it another day. All right. Thanks for everyone who joined us. I think some people are saying they're leaving. Just to kind of close it up, again, just round of applause to our alumni for joining us. Thank you so much for being here. Short and sweet experience, but I really hope that everyone knows that we're an open book and that you can come and ask us any questions or reach out to us at any time. You can email us at info@discovercorps. Both Angela and I are often the people who monitor that email. So if there's any questions right away, I know some of the people on the call I've been working with personally, so look forward to hearing from you, and just please do schedule a time to talk with us. We have Calendly links that block our calendars for 15-minute sessions where you can just block a time with me and we can talk through all your questions personally. or you can again follow up with an email. So again, thank you for everyone for joining us, Rob, Sharon, Tammy. It's great to see your faces on the screen. Often we're on the phone, so don't get to see your lovely faces, but appreciate you for being here and hope everyone has a great rest of their week.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Have a great
I
day.
do got a request to see some
Tell me.
photos if you
Oh
want me
yeah,
to
did you?
share
Can I
the
share it?
screen.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I thought you meant after. You can share your screen, Rob. No, we can do it now. Let's do it.
I'll try to explain what some of it is. I've never
And
used
we
share
can
on here,
photos.
so
Yeah, there you go. Can we see Rob's photos? Love it.
can you see them now?
It's starting. It says starting to share screen. Okay, there you are. Yeah.
All right. So like this is one of the coolest things I think we got feedback on, which was this was a cooking class, and it was at a lady's house. She had basically set up half of her house to do this, and she was smart enough to set it up in the outdoor portion so we weren't getting killed running 6 walks at the same time. But we made our own curry paste. We sat down, we'd eat a course, we'd get back up, we'd make the food again. This is our accommodations in Chiang Mai, and it was like it was right off the cut of an alley, and you wouldn't expect to see like this lush thing right in the city center of Chiang Mai, which you can see right here. I see those little blue dots. That's where we were actually at. This is like a 1 square mile. Tons and tons of temples. You could throw a rock in any direction and hit a temple. But let me get more to like, there's a whole group. That's all of us in our group trying to get a picture.
I love that.
Oops.
Oh, you unshared your screen.
I didn't mean to do that. I'm not good at these things. There we go.
It's okay.
And this was the festival where we got super hot. Everyone had to have their. Yeah, I'm wearing ridiculous shorts to cover my knees. And that's the. I mean, it's just like, even though if we were here in town, maybe the kids wouldn't want to do stuff like this. It was immersive, and it did a ton to kind of capture their attention in a way that I don't think we could do ourselves. Here's the elephants. This is actually the state-funded park, and they kind of show what a trained elephant was meant for and what they could do, what their uses were in the past, which was mostly logging. This was a place where they do these elephant art installations, and all the money comes back and helps fund the hospital in Thailand. There's an elephant hospital that all elephants get free healthcare from, as long as you can get them there and leave a trainer with them. This was a dance theater dinner type thing. It was one of the few meals where I could find a beer. Other things that the kids did. We're kind of flip through here. So this isn't the sanctuary. This is just like a day trip to the state facility, feeding the elephants. And that was our first interaction. So that was like getting us kind of ready to go be at the sanctuary for 5 days, which I thought was a good way to do it. Our guide was really good about not only providing, but also kind of forcing the kids to try new things. So we had all these that's lychee, just some weird fruits and some different things to try. And the kids were pretty good sports about that. She did a really good job of getting them out of their comfort zone. These are all those art installations. They do one a year per place. And we did our own painting there, which was kind of cool, and also a break from the heat, which was nice. And these are our family elephants, which are
your designs.
Yeah, they're all over our house now, and I can find the right one. You'll be able to tell where we're from because one of them has a block O on it. And our pictures are a little bit out of order because some people's cameras had like their timestamps were off, but this is a good example of a change there was something that we couldn't do, so they put something else in, and that something else was going to a battered women's shelter. And I think that's a wonderful thing for adults to do. Our concern was we had 3 teenage boys who I couldn't predict their conduct at, and I didn't think it was a good idea for us to do. So instead, they took us to this water park. This is up north, the big gold pagoda that supposedly has a toe bone of Buddha buried in it. We'll get back to that other thing. And that was, I mean, that was just amazing find. There's a good
So much
family
beautiful
picture.
architecture. Amazing.
Yeah. But this dog spent a day with us. Stray dog. It was fun. And trying to see where that other trip just went. Chickens everywhere. Everyone had a favorite chicken. But this was in place of the battered women's thing after, we're like, hey, maybe something a little more kid friendly. And they took us to a place that was called the Grand Canyon. And it's one of the best water parks I've seen, because you would never have anything like this in the United States. There's no way they would do it. And as you can see, I was allowed to have a beer, so that was kind of nice too. But no, the kids had, as you can see, like as I'm flipping through these pictures, we were in all kinds of different environments, doing all kinds of different things. My son won a free drink for going the farthest on this weird contraption.
Oh my goodness.
So stuff like,
Very fun.
stuff like that. And this is only the north. Like, we haven't even gotten to the south. Like, if I scroll down here a little bit, again, that's more up in the mountains, which, by the way, if I had to choose, this is our experience at the sanctuary. It's pretty smart to stick us in the all blue things. Then the elephants know who's feeding them. They just look for people in blue outfits. And there's just, I don't know. This is not, you can't replicate this. Just sitting here, walking around with these guys. Getting used to them, trusting that they're not going to step on you. Like, yeah. This is giving the elephants a little cool off bath afterwards. There's and the food was amazing everywhere, even at the sanctuary. We were treated very hospitably, very kind. That's us making medicine for the elephants. The elephants don't eat a natural diet in captivity. They're unwilling to eat things that don't taste good, so you have to force feed them some of these other vitamins and minerals that they would normally get from bark during off seasons, etc. And so we had to cut all this stuff up and then mash it and then go feed it to them. I mean, it was work, but I think it was gratifying work, and everyone felt accomplished and rewarded at the end. And we were very proud of the way the kids handled the adversity that came with, our living conditions. You're not going to get this anywhere else. There's no way to plan and organize this as efficiently. I mean, seriously, they just took great care of us.
It's so fun.
And we did our best to take as best care of the elephants as we could. This was like, hey, this is called the Dr. Seuss Temple for, I think, obvious reasons. And this wasn't audible. It was like, hey, it was really hot the day we cut grass. They're like, we're just going to go here for an afternoon and get some ice cream. And that's exactly what we did. And
beautiful.
I certainly, I'm pretty good again, like solo traveling, finding things, points of interest, getting to them and stuff like that. The amount of information the guides have and their experience being from there doing these things, there's no way. Like if I would have tried to plan this on myself, I don't think I would have saved very much money. And there's no way. There's just no way we would have known about or had access to all the things that we were doing. I think this turns into a water fight against the kids, but they were trying to bathe the elephants.
Oh, that's amazing, Rob. Thank you so much. Really,
You are
it's
welcome, guys. I thought maybe sharing a little bit of that
that's
would help people
awesome.
understand.
It was perfect. Thank you for showing them. There's so many places that, again, because I have not been there. I loved all the different elephants, like the art kind of like installations of them, and that's amazing.
And
No,
as
there's
fast as
a
I was scrolling, that was less than half of the pictures.
yeah, exactly. You didn't even make it to your extension. No, I agree. When I get back from a Discover Corps trip, it's like it's hundreds of photos. It's like so much to see, so much to do. Yeah, thank you for showcasing that. I think that was perfect. Perfect way to
Our
end. And oh,
this
go ahead.
Thailand folder has 2,960 photos in it.
Exactly. That's crazy. Oh my goodness. Oh, well, Tammy, thank you for staying on as well. Appreciate you being here. And for everyone, again, I'm going to send a recording. So after this ends, I just download it and we'll send out an email tomorrow. So we take a report from everyone that's been on the call. So everyone knows. I wanted to quickly mention before we hop off just that there is a reference list that we give for people who've been on the trip before. A lot of you, Rob, Tammy, probably already on that list. But for other trips that maybe we didn't have an alumni on the call, that does exist as a resource for you. So just know that you can ask us for our reference list for other trips or for people who've recently been on the experience if you want to speak to someone, because I know that that can be helpful. Speak to somebody of a similar profile as you that's been before. So thank you everyone for a wonderful morning, and hope everyone leaves a little inspired, hopefully excited to do some more travel. And thanks for sharing those pictures again, Rob. That was perfect.
No problem.
Thank you very much.
Have a great day, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
You too.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye.